You gotta help me. You gotta help me. It's trying to kill me. Florida.
Today's forecast, a lot of sunshine, blue skies, marine clouds. Just a perfect day to go outside and relax. That's your forecast. We'll be right back.
Yeah, sunny days, sunny days, sunny days. No clouds in the sky, about to get away. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break.
Hi there. I'm Palm Beaches Paul, your local realtor and guide to the Palm Beaches, and welcome back to my channel. Is the state of Florida really a killer? Is it trying to kill you? Well, today we're going to talk about 10 things in the state of Florida that could possibly kill you. So let's get started. So the state of Florida has an abundance of two things: sunshine, as you can clearly see today, and water. With all that water, that means people are going to be doing a lot of swimming in our beautiful oceans. But unfortunately, there's things in that ocean that can kill you. So let's talk about the most obvious one: sharks, because they're in the news and they've been talking about them all summer long. So in 2021, there were 28 unprovoked shark attacks in the state of Florida alone. That accounted for 60% of the total shark attacks throughout the United States that year. That's quite a bit. Now, sharks aren't the man-eaters that everyone makes them out to be.
Agile, you know that? I don't know how else to say this to you, Lenny. You see something, you kill it, you eat it, period. Thanks. That's what sharks do.
I mean, people have been killed by sharks, but most of the time, sharks are just curious. They don't know what you are, and they bite you, and they release. And that's why there's not as many fatalities as there possibly could be. But nonetheless, it's, scary to have something that big with all those teeth, come up and bite you. But, there's ways that you can prevent that, or at least, mitigate it a little bit. One, don't go swimming at first light, like in early morning, because that's when sharks are eating like everyone else, having breakfast. Also at dusk, when it starts to get, darker and they really can't tell what you are in the water. And it's also their dinner time. So that's when they're feeding. Also, when there's a lot of bait fish around. So, when you come out here and you see the water and you see splashes and stuff, there's a lot of bait fish. It's usually not a good idea to be in the water when you see that. Now there can be bait fish any time of the day, but typically it's going to be early morning or in the later evening. And so, staying out of the water during those times will, at least help prevent you from getting bit by a shark. Sharks are always here in the water in Florida. We've seen the helicopter photos from the news channels where they're flying above, and you'll see someone out in the water and they're surrounded by thousands of sharks and nothing happens. And that's typically how it is. But, unfortunately, on the rare occasion that you happen to be there and the shark sees you as possibly food, that's when the shark attacks happen. And in some very unfortunate, cases, people have died. And it's a horrible thing to think about. We all saw the movie Jaws, right? So it's scary to think about it. But typically, they're not there looking to eat you. So, if you take those precautions that I told you and stay out of the water during those times and use a little common sense, if you're on a protected beach with a lifeguard and they say get out of the water, get out of the water. And, I've gone swimming hundreds of times and been fortunate. And, do I get nervous about it? Yeah, it's always in the back of my mind, especially my teenager who wants to surf right now. But for the most part, you have a better chance of winning the lottery. That would have been nice this week. Now, there's another killer in the water that you cannot see. Well, actually you can if you know how to look for it. And that's called a rip current or a riptide. So rip currents are pretty much on every beach in the state of Florida and probably other states as well. They're narrow bodies of water, usually about 10 to 20 feet in width, and they pull away from the beach. And that's how people get in trouble. Someone will be out swimming, they'll get caught in a rip current, it starts pulling them out further, they panic and they try to swim against it. And that's where they tire out and unfortunately they drown. Just this year, since making this video, in 2022, there's already been 5 deaths because of rip current. Now what you're supposed to do is swim parallel. So if you're out in the ocean and you're getting dragged out, you swim parallel. So swim north or south, and eventually you'll get out of the current It may drag you out a little ways, but then you can start swimming back to shore and be safe. But for a lot of people, they panic, especially little kids. You know, I mean, I've been in a rip current once, and it really does scare you when you start getting pulled, because they're pretty strong and you can't fight them. Doesn't matter if, you know, you're Mark Spitz, that's for us old guys, or Michael Phelps. You know, you're gonna have a hard time swimming against a rip current, and you shouldn't. Like I said, you swim parallel to it. So start going north or south, whichever way, you know, you need to, away from the current, and parallel to it, and eventually you'll get out of it and you can swim. But like I said, you know, I've never really been able to see them, but they say that if you look in the water, you can kind of see them. The water flows opposite direction, and they're usually not that wide. Like I said, between 10 and 20 feet wide. So, you know, stay on beaches where there's a lifeguard if you can, but like this beach, there's no lifeguard, so you have to know how to save yourself. Here comes one of those helicopters. You think they see any sharks? Man, this is much better. I'm in the shade. I was melting out there. So, the third killer in the water. There is a flesh-eating bacteria that is, you know, here in the state of Florida. And since 2019, it's killed about 19 people. Now, most people that come in contact with this bacteria, you know, have to get antibiotics to cure it, and it can affect any part of the body. So in 2020, there were 29 cases of this flesh-eating bacteria, which I think they said it's some type of streptococcus or something. You'd have to look it up. But it's typically found in brackish, very warm water, a lot of times over on the west coast of Florida. Don't know what causes it, but they say that, you know, if it's stagnant, warm water, brackish water, obviously, you know, I don't think it would be the ocean. It's more going to be like tidal pools and places where the water's kind of maybe not moving as much. But it can kill you if it's not cured. You know, a lot of people will have to go through a long process of antibiotics, I believe, to get rid of it. And in some cases, they've had parts of their bodies amputated because it ate away at the skin. So it's something that you definitely don't want. It's not easy to get rid of. And it is one of the killers here in the state of Florida. So I know at this point you're probably thinking, man, do I want to move to Florida? It's like monsters, things in the water, but they are pretty rare when you look at the numbers. I mean, 29 people in 2020 out of the millions of people who come here every year and people that live here. But still, I wouldn't want to be one of those 29 who got that. So, all right, let's keep on moving down the list here. Obviously, one of the killers in the state of Florida is the heat. Man, it can be brutal living in South Florida, especially when the humidity comes. Oh man, that felt really good. It is hot today. I tell you, it's probably in the mid-90s, and being out on that beach, especially with a starch shirt on, I normally wouldn't wear that to the beach, and I'd have my swim trunks on. But so heat exhaustion, and the heat is another killer here in the state of Florida. And on average, about 10 to 28 people a year die from it. Now, one thing I'm guilty of any time of the year, but especially in the summer, and my wife gets on me about it all the time, is that I don't drink enough water. So in the state of Florida, especially in the summer, you always got to have some type of hydration, whether it's water, Gatorade. I mean, you can drink a soda, but that's really not the best thing. Really, you should be drinking a lot of water, because not only is it hot, but it's humid. And the combination of the two, just, you know, it may say 98 degrees, but the temperature feels like 103 out. So, and, you know, it's 6 months out of the year, it's pretty warm in Florida, you know, basically May, June, July, August, September, even October. You know, I've talked about it in videos before. During Halloween, my kid's taking his costume mask off because it's just too hot to wear it. You know, we don't get those nice cool falls that you guys get up in the north. So it really doesn't start really getting comfortable until December, honestly. And even then, I've been Christmas morning in shorts and flip-flops because it was 85 degrees. So you got to watch the heat. You know, if you're going to be outside, if you're going to do things like yard work, do it early in the morning, or you know, maybe towards the evening when it's cooled down a little bit. You know, if you can go places like the beach and whatever, just make sure you have lots and lots of water. We're going camping this weekend over on Peanut Island. I know it's going to be hot because I looked at the weather, but hopefully we'll have a breeze coming in from the ocean, especially at nighttime. but you know, we're gonna pack a lot of water and Gatorade and stuff to keep us hydrated. So and the other thing is, you know, a lot of people that may not have the means, unfortunately, lower income, you know, they live in homes without AC, or the AC doesn't work, and that's just a horrible situation to be in, especially for the elderly. So, you know, you always want to make sure that your AC is working well, or you have fans to keep the air circulating. That is a problem that we see in the news all the time. So, but yeah, it's a hot place. It's hot year round, so you got to take precautions when going outside and dealing with this Florida sun. Oh yeah, and wear lots of sunscreen. All right, so the next killer in the state of Florida is skin cancer, and that's why I said you need to use a lot of lotion. Florida has the second highest rate of melanoma in the nation. Out of the 90,000 people who are diagnosed with skin cancer each year, 8,000 of those are from the state of Florida. Now, with all this beautiful weather and beautiful water to go swimming in and boating in, you can see why. We're out in the sun a lot. I'm out in the sun a lot, but you see me, I wear a hat in every one of my videos. When I mow my lawn, I wear a big brimmed hat. It's also because I don't have any hair, but I want to keep that skin protected because I'm always out in the sun here. So what you want to do to, you know, keep yourself from hopefully getting skin cancer is obviously wear really good lotion when you're out in the sun a lot, sweat-proof suntan lotion, reapply when you get wet, or, you know, every, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes, they say you should reapply. And then there's also lots of shirts you can wear that are, you know, sun protection, like t-shirts, sort of a long sleeve t-shirt that are light in weight. And I know my son wears a lot of those, and I'll wear those when we go fishing. So basically, you just want to make sure that you're covered up, or you have some good lotion on during the peak, you know, hours. You know, in the summer, it's, you know, really from 10 a.m. all the way to 6. I mean, the UV rays are really high during the summer, obviously, and just living here in Florida alone, it's always sunny, even the winter. So you want to make sure that you have the right, you know, either lotion on to protect yourself, you know, a high rating like a 50, or wear some of the long sleeve lightweight shirts to keep the sun off you, and always some kind of hat or scarf or something. So you're just trying to protect yourself so you don't get skin cancer, because listen, you're always going to be out in the sun. It's Florida, everybody wants to be out enjoying it, but you do want to make sure that you're protecting your skin and not end up with some kind of cancer. All right, so you're probably wondering why I haven't brought up this one, so I'm going to bring it up. So the next killer in the state of Florida is drownings. So with all that water, you can expect that unfortunately there's going to be some drownings. In 2020, there were 69 deaths alone, and most of them were children, which is really sad. Now, a lot of these deaths can be prevented because people could be taught to swim. I think a lot of people just don't know how to swim, and that happens, unfortunately. And then kids, you know, you just always got to be watching kids anytime you're near water. The ways that you can prevent those deaths is obviously, you know, safety devices on swimming pools, all the things that we know about, a safety net, alarms, if a kid falls in the water. Teaching your kid how to swim is a big one. But also, see, here's a lifeguard stand. The sign says stay within 50 yards of the shore. So swim in protected areas. Swim where there's a lifeguard. You know, they're trained to rescue if they see someone going under. That's what they're trained to do. Even though I know there's a shortage of lifeguards right now, which is pretty sad. But try to swim in areas of water where there's a lifeguard or a lot of people around. And always keep an eye on your kids in the water. So when both my little guys were babies, we taught them how to swim. We went to the YMCA. Another time, no, actually both times, the YMCA is great. They have a great program, and we got them in the water immediately because, you know, we fish, we kayak, we go on boats, we go to the beach, we go to water parks. We're always around water here in Florida, so we wanted to make sure our kids were safe and knew how to swim. But even with that, I mean, you can drown anytime. You know, a lot of people go out boating and they don't wear a life jacket because it's not cool or they feel it's too hot. Well, it's, you know, you don't know when that wave's going to hit your boat and you're going to get ejected and then hit the water so hard that it knocks you out. That's when you drown, because you didn't have on a flotation device. So like I said, a lot of deaths can be prevented with drowning. You just got to use common sense and take some precautions. But unfortunately, in 2020, 69 people did lose their lives to drowning. So it's definitely a killer here in the state of Florida. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice big lake full of probably, ice cold water, perfect for swimming in and just maybe relaxing on a hot summer day. Not if you live in Florida. Now, as inviting as that lake looks, especially on a hot summer day like this, any body of fresh water in the state of Florida is considered dangerous. And the reason I say that is because any body of fresh water in the state of Florida could contain alligators. You just have to assume that living in Florida, if there's fresh water, there could be alligators. And even the springs up in the middle of Florida have been known to have alligators. So, Florida is a big swamp, and there's gators everywhere, from way up north all the way down to the Florida Keys. Down in the Florida Keys, we even have crocodiles. So you really have to be careful about some of the water that you get in. So on average in the state of Florida, we have about 8 unprovoked attacks a year. And that's usually just, someone who's either swimming somewhere where they shouldn't have been and the alligator, got them, or maybe they could have been paddleboarding in a river, whatever. And the alligator just, was either it was mating season when they're really aggressive, or, they were close to an edge of, body of water where they shouldn't have been, or at least they should have been paying attention. But on average, there's about 8 attacks a year in the state of Florida. Now, since 1948, and between 1948 and 2021, there have been 26 actual deaths from alligators. So it's extremely rare that you're gonna get attacked by an alligator, but you have to use common sense. Body of water, alligator. You just need to think that. And especially if you're walking your dogs, which I see a lot of people do, they'll walk their dogs in their backyard. I live on a lake and we have a shoreline. We never would let our dogs near the shoreline, because especially small dogs, if there are gators, they're going to think of them as food, and that's when the attack occurs. And then if you're trying to save your dog, like the one gentleman did.
This is the moment Richard Wilbanks wrestles an alligator to save his dog's life.
That was in the news. He was fortunate, but he got some bites on his arms, but that could have ended with him getting killed and dragged, underneath. So they're big creatures. I mean, they're like dinosaurs. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the one on the news. By the way, sorry, there's always someone doing lawn work when I video. It's a given, but I'm in Florida, right? There are people cutting their lawn every day, I guess. Anyway, there was the big gator going across the Florida golf course, and it was a dinosaur. The thing looked like it was 12 feet long. So they can get extremely large, but it doesn't have to be a big alligator. A 4-foot alligator can grab your arm and do some damage. So to be safe, just assume that any body of fresh water could have an alligator in it. Don't stand next to the edge. Don't go swimming in, water that you're not sure of and you don't know if it's been checked. I mean, they can't really check it. There are some places that are freshwater where, they have gone through and tried to make sure there's no alligators in there, like some of the parks where you see people wakeboarding. And even my lake in my backyard, though I'd never swim in it, we've never seen a gator. But that doesn't mean that there's not one in there, and we go fishing in the backyard all the time in our kayaks. But just be safe. Don't walk your dogs near the edge, or small children, or even yourself, especially at night. During mating season, be extra cautious, and just watch out, because unfortunately there are alligators all over Florida, and they may see you as food. Now, alligators aren't the only thing in that water that can kill you. This next one is straight out of a horror movie. So if the alligators don't get you, the brain-eating amoebas might. Ugh.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
So in 2020, the Department of Health reported 16 cases and 2 deaths from a brain-eating amoeba that people caught from jumping and swimming in fresh water. In 2019, there were 27 cases and 2 deaths. So it's a real thing, and it's not anything I ever would want to experience. Brain-eating amoeba. So how do you get this deadly creature? Well, it's from jumping in water just like this. Fresh, warm, standing, stagnant lake water with a lot of loose sediment down at the bottom. You jump in, it gets kicked up. This amoeba enters through the nose and swims up into the brain. Now, here's the scary thing. It has a 97% fatality rate. So it's not, you don't have a good chance of surviving if the this happens to you. Now, fortunately, there's only about 3 people a year who get it, or unfortunately for those 3, but your chance of survival is very, very slim. So, how do you avoid it? Well, you don't go jumping in warm bodies of water or lake water like this or a pond, especially in the hot summer here in Florida where the water's been sitting and it gets stagnant. There's no flow of water coming back and forth. It's just like hot lake water. Now, I don't know that this lake has it, but it definitely has the loose sediment. I can see the sediment down there at the bottom, and I guess the bacteria lives in that kind of environment. So just, don't go jumping in. Don't have your dogs jumping in this kind of water. Don't let your kids jump in it. If the water, it's hot, it's summertime, and it's been sitting there and it's just growing and algae. And I mean, who would want to jump in this anyway? It's disgusting looking. But that's fresh water at least on a lot of lakes here in Florida. So brain-eating amoebas, they exist, and they're very real. So don't go jumping in the lakes. So what are the chances that there's some alligators in this canal? Probably a really good one. We have canals like this all over South Florida, and it's because they help drain the Everglades and keep the water under control. They're managed by the South Florida Water Management, and right now they're pretty normal. But when a hurricane comes, they actually start to drain some of these canals in preparation for all the rain. So that's the next killer in the state of Florida. Hurricanes. So we were supposed to have 14 to 21 named storms and about 6 to 11 hurricanes this season. And there's still time. As I said, we have till the end of November. That's the end of hurricane season here in the Atlantic coast. But so far it's been quiet, and we're hoping it stays that way. Now, the thing about hurricanes is they can cause a lot of damage, and as I said, they can cause death. The biggest cause of death related to hurricanes is from the tidal surge. When the water from the ocean just keeps coming in, and it gets so high that it ends up flooding people's homes. Like when Katrina hit and the tidal surge came in, people were hiding in their attics and they had no more room to go, and unfortunately some people got trapped and they drowned. They even tell you to have an axe to try to break through your roof, but that's a lot harder to do than people would imagine. So the tidal surge is one thing, but then also buildings collapsing on people if it's a strong enough hurricane. Obviously people died from that. So things like people running generators in their house, in their garage, and not have it ventilated enough, and getting carbon monoxide poisoning. All those things are still related to the hurricane. They're just unfortunate accidents that happen to occur after the hurricane. Living in South Florida with all this water around us, and it's not a matter of if but when we're going to get another major hurricane. So you always have to be prepared for that and be cautious when you're going through a hurricane. You need to make sure that you're in a safe place. All right, we're down to the last one, and since we're talking about weather, we're going to talk about the last killer in the state of Florida, and that is lightning. By the way, if you like these videos, do me a big favor and please subscribe. And if you want to go a little further, hit that thumbs up, because YouTube likes that, because then it tells other people that, hey, people like this video and maybe you should watch it too. And if you really want to get crazy, leave a comment down below and tell me what you think is the #1 killer in the state of Florida, or even add one to the list that maybe I didn't mention. Nice big tree. Great place to get some shade in this hot Florida sun. Not such a good place to stand during a thunderstorm. Whew. All right, I moved over here into the shade that this tree is providing, because that sun, it's like 6 p.m. summertime. That sun is directly west, right up in the sky, and it's just cooking right now. So, the last of the killers here in Florida, lightning. Florida is the lightning capital of the United States and almost the world. There might be some places where it strikes more, but not many. On average, 7 people a year get struck by lightning and die in the state of Florida. Now, with like a lot of the things that I said could kill you in this video, you can avoid lightning for the most part. For one, don't be under a tree like this during a lightning storm. Don't be out in an open field and be the tallest object during a lightning storm. And pretty much listen to the weather people when they say there's a thunderstorm coming. say that there's a thunderstorm coming, and take, you know, caution and get inside, get somewhere where you can be protected. The lightning strikes in South Florida, our summer storms can be brutal, and the lightning is deadly. Now, I see people all the time after, you know, it rains and the thunderstorm going right back outside to whatever they were doing, you know, yard work, soccer games, playing golf, whatever it is. And you're supposed to wait until 30 minutes from the last lightning and thunder. So the last time there's a lightning strike and then the thunder, you're supposed to really wait 30 minutes until you don't hear any more, to be safe to go back outside and resume activities. But nobody waits. We're not in today's society where everybody wants everything instantly. Nobody's waiting, and so they end up going back out, and the storm might not be done yet, and lightning can strike from as far as 20 miles away. You have no idea where it's coming from. So, and there have been stories of people that were out on a beautiful sunny day under a tree or out on the field and lightning struck. So it's one of those things that you just kind of have to use common sense about. I go boating a lot, and when there's a bad storm, we avoid the storms. We go the other direction. You know, we don't go right into the storm, because the last thing you want to do is, you know, be out there in the water, wet, holding metal, and have lightning strike around you. You know, you just want to use some good common sense with lightning. And if you see a storm coming, then kind of think in your head, okay, maybe I should be heading inside or get somewhere where I know I can be protected. All right, so have I scared you off? I hope not. As I said, a lot of these things you can avoid if you use a little common sense and, you know, take some precautions. But unfortunately, some things you just can't help, and they could happen. So, but those are 10 things in the state of Florida that might kill you. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please be sure to click the links at the end of it. You can watch all my other stuff or click on one of the playlists. And as always, when you're in the Palm Beaches, get out and enjoy paradise. I'll talk to you next week.